we've been tracking all the companies that have been pulling out of Russian operations, and that's taken a lot of different forms, right? In some cases, it means companies like Shell are not going to be purchasing Russian assets. In some, it means closing stores, manufacturing operations, et cetera. And you have some new ones to add to the list.
Yeah, the running list. I will say this very quickly. We have a long running tab on the Yahoo Finance homepage right now of companies stepping up saying they are not going to do business in Russia. New names on that list this morning, Julie. Levi's temporarily suspending operations in Russia and also suspending new investments. P&G CEO John Mueller, new CEO of P&G, I should say, sent a letter to employees, said it will halt spending on capital investments, advertising, and promotions in Russia and only sell products that focus on basic health, hygiene, and personal care in the country. IBM also suspending operations in Russia. Vanguard suspending purchases of Russian securities from its actively managed funds. And then WeWork, Julie, saying it will leave Russia a week after its CEO said it had no plans to leave Russia. So clearly some big-name companies in this world are stepping up here and waving goodbye to Russia.
And it's interesting, to your point, the kind of timeline here, that there are still companies that have not capitulated, so to speak, or pulled back, so to speak, that are still even now at this point making that decision. So, I don't know that we have a list of companies that do still have operations in Russia that have resisted this, but obviously
I'm going to do that for you. I'll go grab it for you real quick. Be right back.
Yes, thank you. Don't go anywhere, please. Let's continue to talk about the effects of all of what's going on the supply chain and on trade between Russia, Ukraine, and the rest of the globe. I want to bring in Elisabeth Braw. She's a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. And Elisabeth, you recently wrote about the supply chain issues from a shipping perspective specifically. So where do we stand right now? And, we've been talking about energy prices, but really this seems like it's going to affect prices of a broad swath of goods, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And if we look at what's happening, there are so many parts of the globalized economy that are being affected in a very sort of brutal and sudden manner. So you mentioned energy prices, but there is also global shipping. There is no industry more transnational than shipping because it physically crosses borders, maritime borders, every single day of the year. And now, as a result of Russia's invasion, the three largest shipping companies have said they will no longer go to Russian ports. And of course, Russian ships, Russian-owned ships, Russian-managed ships will no longer be able to go to UK ports and Canadian ports and very soon EU ports. So all of that is happening, and it's leaving all these vessels traveling around the world with cargo already on board, with crews already on board, leaving them in complete no man's land. Where are they supposed to go with their cargo? And they can't deliver it, they can't pick up the new cargo. And of course, Ukraine's ports are already closed and the number of ships are stuck there. So complete chaos. I wouldn't want to compare it with the absolute tragedy that's facing the people of Ukraine, but nevertheless, complete chaos for the shipping industry.
Elisabeth, does this chaos, as you describe it, does this ultimately lead to a sharp slowdown in global economic growth?
If we think about what global shipping does for the global economy, it is the globalized economy is unthinkable as it has been working until now without shipping. Shipping accounts for 90% of trade that is being sent between different parts of the world. If shipping can't continue as it has been working until now, then we will see a reduction in economic activity because airlines can't absorb all that cargo, and of course there are disruptions to aviation as well as a result of this conflict, and nor can railways absorb all of that. But the other aspect, and I think you mentioned it, Julie, earlier, is what happens to the companies that are leaving Russia. And that's not just a matter of saying, oh, we are leaving Russia now, goodbye. What do they do with what happens to their employees? What happens to the assets they have in the country? How are they going to get those out if they don't plan to return next week or any time in the near future? So all of that is happening as we speak. Really remarkable disruption of the globalized economy.
Elisabeth, one thing that I didn't mention in the roundup of headlines this morning, that's another important one, is that Russia is threatening to cut off the Nord Stream 1 pipeline to Europe, which supplies natural gas to Europe. We've seen remarkable swings in the local natural gas markets there. Is this a real threat, and what would happen if that supply was cut off?
A month ago, I would have said it's not a real threat. Russia likes to issue threats and then doesn't follow through on them. But attacking Ukraine militarily was such a threat. I think many people, including the Ukrainian leadership, didn't take that threat seriously. But considering that Russia has followed through on that threat, I think it stands to reason that we should take its threat of cutting off Nord Stream 1 very seriously too, and this is really the dramatic illustration of really what I think of as the end of globalization. Nord Stream 1 and then even Nord Stream 2 were built based on the idea that countries would trade freely and there would be fewer and fewer hurdles and trade would make countries get along better. And now all of a sudden that those links are a vulnerability, and in no area more sharply so or more obviously so than in energy with these pipelines, where Europe could face significant difficulties if Russia does follow through on this threat.
Elisabeth, I know we're in the midst of all of this, but are we witnessing in real time a permanent reworking of the global economic order?
I absolutely think so, and I think we started seeing it even before this crisis, because China was showing that, demonstrating very clearly that they didn't intend to operate according to the fair play rules on which globalization is based. So countries, and especially companies, were already having doubts about whether globalization can actually work. Now along comes this invasion, and Russia is dramatically cut off from the globalized economy. So that is a dramatic acceleration of something we were already seeing. I think we are certainly at a very dramatic juncture in globalization. And I think what will happen is Russia will turn more towards China, not just economically, but in terms of infrastructure, of systems. For example, starting to use China's equivalent, China's alternative to SWIFT. So we're seeing really the beginnings of a dramatic refashioning of the global economic system.
Elisabeth, thank you so much for your perspective this morning. Really appreciate it. Elisabeth Braw is a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Thank you.